What's up guys, and welcome back to another round of my 2019 F1 modded career mode. Back today for round number 16, it's the Russian Grand Prix. And if you guys are still enjoying this series, with 6 rounds left to go, do make sure to leave a like down below. And let me know in the comments if you want to see me do a season 2 of this to go in line with the real life 2019 F1 season. I'd love to gauge interest and see what you guys think. But getting into today's race, you can see that we have got 2 new upgrades on our car. We have got an aerodynamics upgrade and a chassis upgrade, which should do as well in the performance chart. And coming in a couple of rounds time, for the United States Grand Prix, we have got a major chassis upgrade to do with the weight reduction, which should again put us right in the mix. Talking of that performance chart, we are now ahead, for the first time this season, of Red Bull. We've been 4th for the entire season, but of course we've crept closer and closer to those top 3 teams, and finally we are deemed quicker than Red Bull and now right behind Mercedes and Ferrari. The question was though, would we be able to put that performance advantage over Red Bull to good use? And as you can see by the starting grid, Pierre Gasly put it in P2 just behind Lewis Hamilton and out-qualified ourselves. Although I'm very happy with P3. We are sandwiched between the 2 Red Bull cars with Max Verstappen behind us in P4. Then comes Sebastian Vettel in the lead Ferrari car ahead of our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, with Bottas in 7th and Lando Norris putting it ahead of the 2nd Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, with Sergio Perez rounding out the top 10 ahead of Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll. Grosjean and Raikkonen lining up on the 7th row, with Magnussen, the 2nd Haas car, in what was a very poor qualifying for the rich energy powered team. And then Albon and Russell round out the grid for what could prove to be a very exciting Russian Grand Prix. Now before we get into the race, let's take a look at the strategy. And this weekend we actually have the 2 softest compounds available to us, the Hypersofts and the Ultra Softs. And by the looks of it, that's all we're going to need on a one-stop strategy. Of course, this track back in 2014 saw Nico Rosberg pit on lap 1 and go all the way to the end of the Grand Prix. So tyre degradation, probably not our biggest concern this afternoon, so we should be coming in around lap 10, and it's looking like it's going to be dry for the entire race. On to the formation lap we go then, and taking a look at the driver's standings in the bottom right. We lost a little bit of ground last time out to the Red Bull drivers. Of course, Verstappen and Gasly took a 1-2 back in Singapore around the track, which very much favours the Red Bull car. And, well, we're going to be battling them by the looks of it in today's race. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out and whether we can pull away from those 2 Red Bull guys, or whether we're going to find it difficult. We're going to find out soon enough, because we're now going to the 5 red lights here in Sochi for the Russian Grand Prix, and we are held for an age, but away we go finally. And it's an alright start from ourselves. We're not under any pressure from Verstappen behind, and it looks as if we may be able to challenge the top 2. They're 3 abreast just behind us, including our teammate and Sebastian Vettel. And now we go into turn 1, Gasly and Hamilton side by side, and Gasly looks as if he's got the move on Hamilton. They're still going to be side by side as we go through turn 3 and head towards the 2nd braking zone on the track. Lewis Hamilton just about gets ahead of Gasly, holds position at the start, and Verstappen holds P4 behind us. So it's as you were after the first sector of the Grand Prix, but it looks as if it's going to be a very racy Grand Prix with 4 teams incredibly closely matched in the performance chart, which means we're going to have a very, very exciting Grand Prix. And we've got Max Verstappen in apparently the 4th quickest car on the grid, who is trying to get into the podium positions alongside his teammate. Gasly has pulled away from us a bit in this 2nd sector, and as we now go towards the big braking zone of turn 13, no DRS active of course because we are on lap 1, but Verstappen was very, very close and doesn't look for a move as we go into the final sector. Gasly already a 2nd ahead of us, with of course Hamilton leading the way still as we were. But yeah, it's proved to be a little bit of a difficult first lap of the Grand Prix, but fortunately we have held position. But it is that man who has also held position, Lewis Hamilton, that is leading the way. From Pierre Gasly, the race winner last time out in Singapore, and the man that is sat in P7 in the drivers' standings, so I believe. And then we've got Max Verstappen behind ourselves in P4, with Daniel Ricciardo in P5, ahead of the championship leader Sebastian Vettel only in P6. And then it's Lando Norris in 7th, with his teammate Sainz in 8th, ahead of Charles Leclerc. But Leclerc has just pulled a move on Carlos Sainz to get up into P8. Then the man sat in P2 in the driver's standings, Valtteri Bottas, is down in 10th place. And if it remains as it is, he'll only be scoring 1 point this afternoon. But of course, we've still got 26 laps left in this Grand Prix and a long way yet to go. And now we skip to the end of lap 2, the start of lap 3. We've got DRS enabled now, and you'd imagine that Max Verstappen, who is less than half a second behind us, will give it a go into turn 2. We're quite a long way behind the 2 leaders, and Verstappen is going to go for a move down the inside. We're going to try and counter that, and as we go into the sweeping left-hander of turn 3, we've just about held position. We're taking a very, very narrow line through here as Verstappen's going to try and go down the inside, and it looks as if he's made the move stick, so fair play to him. Into turn 4 through that right-hander, Max Verstappen has moved up into a podium position ahead of ourselves, and we're struggling here. You can see only just ahead of our teammate now. There was quite a train starting to form behind us, and we're really not enjoying it on these hypersoft tyres at the moment. Just like in Singapore, they really seem to be overheating. There's quite a lot of high-speed corners here at Russia, notably that incredibly long 180-degree left-hander of turn 3. And it's really proving to be a bit of a difficulty, even at this early stage of the race. But we're going to try and keep on the tail of Max Verstappen. I think the 2 leaders are already a good few seconds ahead of us. You can see on the mini-map. They've put quite a bit of distance between ourselves and them. But Verstappen, it'll be interesting to see whether he'll close up or whether we are able to stick to the tail of the Red Bull driver. So far, throughout the course of lap 3, we have stuck to the tail of him. And same goes for Daniel Ricciardo on ourselves. So we're starting lap 4 now, and the run down to turn 2, I think personally, is probably the best overtaking spot on this track. Of course, there are 2 DRS zones, but the other one a little bit tight if you are going to try and make an overtake. But for us on lap 4, we're not quite close enough, although we do go into the back of Verstappen there. He was very, very slow through turn 2 there, and we're going to take that very narrow line once again through turn 3, which seemed to work for us in qualifying, so continuing to use it in the race. Of course, getting on the curb so much probably isn't going to help our tyre wear, but nonetheless, it is helping us keep up with Max Verstappen, this very aggressive driving style that we're using in the first few laps of this Russian Grand Prix. And once again, we're getting onto the DRS on the run through to turn 2 on lap 5 of this Grand Prix. There's been a lot of action so far, and we are not done yet. And we're going to try and outbrake Verstappen and go round the outside. A brilliant move from ourselves there, and Verstappen gets out of shape, and our teammate Daniel Ricciardo moves up into P4. And it looks as if Sebastian Vettel's going to try and get a move on Verstappen, who could be losing 3 positions in as many corners. But no, he just about holds his position, but his position is now P5 instead of P3. So we're going to take a look at a replay of exactly what happened. So we made a little bit of contact with Verstappen, and he went sliding, which is what made him relinquish the position to our teammate Daniel Ricciardo. And then Vettel tried to go all the way around the outside, but Verstappen just about holding out. But yeah, Sebastian Vettel very much back in the game now. Despite him still being in P6, he's pretty much within touching distance of P3. So yeah, he'll be looking for as many points as possible this afternoon to keep his championship lead. Meanwhile, ourselves and Daniel Ricciardo, who are sat in P3 and P4, we can pretty much race as we want because we've got no championship to fight for. We've just got a pretty enjoyable Grand Prix ahead, but you can see the pack, just how tight it is. And you've got the McLaren of Lando Norris, who is still ahead of Valtteri Bottas. But now we've got a battle between ourselves and Daniel Ricciardo on the run to turn 2 here on lap 7 of the Grand Prix. We've got Ricciardo on the outside, although we go a little bit deep into the corner. I think we've just about held the position there, and we're going to park the car on the inside once again. Ricciardo's going to try and get our slipstream on the run to turn 4, but no, we put our car in the right position. But even on lap 7 of this Grand Prix, we're really, really struggling on these hyper soft tyres, and we turn like a bus pretty much into turn 5. And as we go through the kink of turn 6 and into turn 7, Ricciardo sticks his nose down the inside, and we just cannot steer through these corners. Our tyres have once again overheated, and Verstappen also gets through. We just cannot hack it here. I think we're going to have to think of an early pit stop. I mentioned earlier that we're going to try and come in on lap 10 of the Grand Prix. But there's no way we're lasting another 3 laps on these tyres. Meanwhile, Verstappen is going for a move on Daniel Ricciardo now in at turn 13. And he's got the move done before the apex. And brilliant stuff there from Verstappen, who nearly ended up down in P6 just a couple of laps ago. But he is now back in P3, where he was momentarily after overtaking us. And there you can see Sebastian Vettel, the championship leader, is really relishing the battle with us, and we lock up now into the penultimate corner and once again go wide. I don't think we've made a proper corner throughout the entirety of this lap. Terrible grip from these tyres and terrible driving from myself. And now we're under heavy pressure from Sebastian Vettel, who'll surely have a go at us into turn 2. I'd be very surprised if we make the apex of turn 2, judging by our recent performances. And it looks as if we've just about made the apex somehow. And we've stayed ahead of Sebastian Vettel. And now we're going to try and challenge Daniel Ricciardo. We've just suddenly got a new lease of life in those past few corners. But we're going to stick behind our teammate, because I think through the middle sector we will hold him up. But now we're going to take a look at what is happening ahead of us on lap 8 of this Grand Prix. It's still Lewis Hamilton ahead of Pierre Gasly, but they are really battling with each other. And after a few laps of sticking behind, it looks as if Gasly is getting pretty racy now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he at least tries to make an overtake on Lewis Hamilton in the next couple of laps of this Grand Prix. But he's going to stick behind for the meantime. And now we go back to see Max Verstappen, and just you can see there how far behind P3 Max Verstappen is. It's a good few seconds. I'm not sure exactly how many, but it's more than 5 seconds. And yeah, you wouldn't really expect that at such an early stage in this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, we're still all over the place on lap 8. We've decided to keep the car out for another lap. But the plan is now to come in 1 lap earlier on lap 9 of this Grand Prix, because we still want to make this one stopper work. We are losing so much time. We lost 2.5 seconds on the last lap compared to our previous, our best time of the Grand Prix. And now we've got Vettel charging down our inside, and he had a look last lap, and it looks as if he has got ahead of us. This time we get a big tank slapper, and we're going to keep to the inside now of turn 3 and just hope that we can stay ahead of Sebastian Vettel. There was a little bit of contact there, I think, but we do just about stay ahead of Vettel for the meantime. Once again run wide at turn 4, and we're losing quite a bit of time now to Daniel Ricciardo, who's 1.5 seconds ahead. We understeer once again through turn 5, and Vettel is now ahead of us for the first time in this Russian Grand Prix. And it's just not going well. It is just not going well. I'm getting Singapore flashbacks. And several times this season, actually, we've experienced pretty bad tyre wear. Definitely something to look into in terms of my driving style, and maybe the upgrades that we should have done on the car, maybe more tyre wear based. But easy to say in hindsight, and currently we have got Charles Leclerc trying to attack us. Surely we don't want to relinquish another position to another Ferrari driver on the same lap of the Grand Prix, and we just about stay ahead of Leclerc, but we are now in P6. And it's not been a great end to this stint. You can see the tyre wear is pretty bad, but it's not terrible. It's more the tyre temperatures which are doing for us in this Grand Prix. And sure enough, we come into the pit lane at the end of lap 9. So we're only at a 3rd race distance, and our front left tyre, you momentarily saw there, is completely red. Completely red. I've heard that Codemasters have put a patch on today which could solve the tyre wear. We'll have to see in the next few rounds of this series. But we've had our one and only pit stop, or hopefully one and only pit stop of the afternoon. Not the greatest, but still, we come out in P20. So we're going to have a little bit of clear air in front of us. And there's so many times this season that we've pitted first out of anyone. And it's good to have a little bit of clear air and close up on those Williams drivers, because they do need a bit of company at the back sometimes. And I'm more than welcome to provide them with that for the meantime. But going further up the order on lap 10 of this Grand Prix, and the man that we were battling with a few laps ago, Max Verstappen, pits from P3 in this Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel also coming into the pit lane, so it's going to be interesting to see where these two emerge in the pecking order. And now we are coming through the final couple of corners, and we will see where those two drivers emerge in the pecking order. So there's quite a few cars into the pit lane on lap 10 of this Grand Prix, and we've actually managed to jump Sebastian Vettel, so a blistering outlap has got us back ahead of the Ferrari driver, just showing how much tyre wear he must have been suffering from. And then Max Verstappen has come out just ahead of the two Williams cars, so he's got two cars between himself and us, and he's now stuck behind the sister Red Bull car, the Toro Rosso of Alexander Albon, is just ahead of him as we go down the inside of George Russell. It's all happening on lap 11 of this Grand Prix as Verstappen just about gets ahead of Albon at turn 5. And now we're going to try and get ahead of the second Williams in pretty much as many corners. And we do get ahead of Robert Kubica. We got a warning by doing so, but I don't think we really made any contact with him. So not too sure as to why we got the warning there. But anyway, we didn't get a penalty, so it's all good. And we can now turn our attentions to Alexander Albon, who, of course, got overtaken just a few corners ago by Max Verstappen. And we've easily got ahead of him. DRS assisted. It doesn't get much easier than that. We are now in P12 as our teammate Daniel Ricciardo is in the pit lane. Meanwhile, the other man that we're battling with, Max Verstappen, is stuck behind Antonio Giovinazzi in that beautifully liveried Alfa Romeo car. But we've got no time to admire the paint job. We've just got to admire this brilliant battle between ourselves, Verstappen and Ricciardo. And it could be sort of reigniting once again once our teammate Ricciardo comes out of the pit lane. And we now start lap 12 of this Grand Prix. Verstappen still behind Giovinazzi. He's going to try and make a move now through turn 1. And he's managed to do so. And now we have got Daniel Ricciardo, who has emerged from the pit lane. We're going to be pretty much 3 wide through turn 2. We're going to stick it down the inside of Verstappen. Ricciardo's definitely ahead of Verstappen and ourselves, so he is now in a net P3 in this Grand Prix, but we are not done with battling with Max Verstappen. Are we going to stick it down the inside? No, we are not. We are going to have to stick in P5, although we've still ended up making up a position in that pit phase and closing right back up to P3 and 4. Meanwhile, back up at the front, skipping ahead a few laps onto lap 14, it is still Lewis Hamilton ahead of Pierre Gasly. But in this second stint, Gasly finally going for the overtake on Hamilton, and he has made it stick into turn 2. And it looks as if Pierre Gasly, after not winning a race all season, is going to give himself a good chance of winning 2 Grand Prix in a row. These two are a long way ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in P3, so this is very much the battle for the lead. And there is the man in P3 in this Grand Prix, Daniel Ricciardo, our teammate. And it's been a pretty wretched season for him, but would be very well deserved if he does get this podium. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen, I don't think he's going to let Ricciardo take an easy podium. So he is sat in P4 just ahead of ourselves. And then Charles Leclerc is in P6. So troubles, by the looks of it, for his teammate Sebastian Vettel, who is now behind Leclerc in P7. So the championship leader and the man in P2 in the championship, Valtteri Bottas, are going to be battling each other on track. But it's a battle for P7, which is pretty bizarre. But back on board with the live action on lap 14 of this Grand Prix, and we are still battling with Verstappen and Ricciardo. But it looks as if Verstappen is going to try for a move for that final podium position. Ricciardo very, very slow on the straight. It looks as if he might have issues for the second consecutive race, because we've got past him as well, and we have swept round the outside of our teammate. That was all too easy for Verstappen and ourselves. So I think for the second time in as many races, Gasly's leading and Ricciardo has run into problems. Terrible, terrible luck for our teammates. And it looks as if Ricciardo has literally brought his Red Bull luck to the team, to the Renault team with him. And as we start lap 15 of the Grand Prix, it's going to be a very, very difficult race for the Australian. Meanwhile, we are still putting ourselves in contention to get this final podium position. It's been a very strange race. We've either had a lot of pace or had no pace at all. But we're currently in a phase where we've got a decent amount of pace, and we can really afford to battle Max Verstappen because our teammate Ricciardo is a long way back from us now. So we're going to go for the move down the inside of Verstappen, and we've gone purple through Sector 2, which gives ourselves a good chance of getting past the Dutchman, but Verstappen putting his car in all the right positions, and as now we go through the final sector, thinking of making a move down the inside, that would have been a very, very audacious move. We are going to stick behind him for the meantime, and hopefully get that DRS off him. Sort of on the pit straight. So as we now come through the final corner in third gear to start the 16th lap of this Russian Grand Prix, we are now going to prepare ourselves for another DRS zone, and sure enough we are using that drag reduction system, and as we go down to turn 2 we're down the inside of Verstappen. We've made the move before the apex so we can afford to take the racing line, and that has got us into the final podium position once more. And after it looked pretty much dead and buried on lap 9 of this Grand Prix, we are now in a podium position once more. And Verstappen sat in P4 ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc, because look at that, man. Daniel Ricciardo, it looks as if he's got brake issues. I can't actually quite tell which of the Ferraris has currently got past Daniel Ricciardo. The two helmets in the Ferraris do look relatively similar from a distance, but either way, I don't think Ricciardo is going to be troubling the podium positions. And you can see there that I think it is actually Sebastian Vettel behind him, and he is looking all over the place, is Daniel Ricciardo, and he's really ruining the championship leader's chances of a better finish in this Grand Prix. But finally, Vettel pulls away from Ricciardo, and just terrible, terrible luck. Now we've got Valtteri Bottas trying for a move on our teammate, and it's just going from bad to worse. He somehow just about manages to keep ahead of Bottas, but no, he's going to slip down the inside at turn 15. And now he's going to be battling Lando Norris in the McLaren. This is going to do us no good in the Constructors' Championship. You've really got to feel for Ricciardo in this race. But now going on to lap 21, the battle for the lead is still going on, and now Lewis Hamilton is coming back at Pierre Gasly as they come to the run at turn 13. It doesn't look as if Hamilton can get past for the meantime, but of course we've still got 6 laps left in the Grand Prix, so I wouldn't put it past Lewis Hamilton to at least have another go at Gasly before the Grand Prix is over. But those two still very much in the lead of the Grand Prix by a considerable margin, so maybe they can afford to take a few risks in overtaking, because losing a couple of seconds isn't going to hinder them too much. But now as we start lap 22 of the Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton within DRS range, and he's going to be using it on at the run now down to turn 2, although Gasly looks as if he's far enough ahead. And yes, Hamilton goes to the outside, but never really looked in danger of making an overtake down there, so he's going to have to stick in at P2 for the meantime. But now we go on to lap 24 of the Grand Prix, back on board with ourselves, and we are still in at P3, just ahead of Max Verstappen. But not for the first time in this Grand Prix. We have got tyre wear troubles, which is why Verstappen has just been clinging onto the back of us for the last 10 laps or so. Or I believe we overtook him on, what was it, lap 14 or lap 15? And ever since then, Verstappen's just about kept within striking distance. And as we come now to the third to last lap of this Grand Prix, Verstappen is going to look to pounce, and he's surely going to go down the inside of us here at turn 2. The two of us are quite a way ahead of the next car, Charles Leclerc, but it is Max Verstappen who has got ahead of us. But we're going to try and go all the way round the outside here at turn 3, taking an unusual line compared to what we've been taking at the rest of this Grand Prix, but it has paid off, and we are ahead of Verstappen. We're also ahead of Ricciardo, but that is not Ricciardo in the Red Bull car. That's going to take a lot of getting used to for me. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, now, one lap later, lap 26, Verstappen looking for a move once again, but this time it's down into turn 13 at the other DRS zone on the track. We lock up and we're going to go very, very deep now. Hamilton at 10 seconds ahead, so we're very much battling for P3 and P3 alone in this Grand Prix. I don't think we're going to make up 10 seconds in the final lap and a bit of this Grand Prix, but yeah, this is going to be quite a nervy last lap. Of course, last time out in Singapore. If you watched that, you will know that we relinquished a position to Daniel Ricciardo on the final lap. Hopefully we don't do the same to Max Verstappen in this one. And now we've got Charles Leclerc closing up in P5. Surely he won't be able to pounce as well, but you'd very much think that Verstappen's going to look for a move now into turn 2. Is he going to go to the outside or the inside? It's going to be the inside by the looks of it, and he goes down our inside. Are we going to be able to swoop back down the inside at turn 3? We're going to take our traditional line through here, but Verstappen is then going to get the inside line for turn 4, so you back him to make the move, and it looks as if Verstappen has just about got ahead. Yes, he has. So for the second time in as many races, we have lost a position on the final lap. The question is, though, can we get back ahead this time, unlike in Singapore? Of course, a podium position is up for grabs here, and we go very, very deep through turn 7. And our tyres are just gone from underneath us once again. Of course, we pitted a lap earlier than Verstappen. We took that risk to, you know, at least take the short-term gain. And it doesn't look as if it's paid off in the long term. And now we've got Charles Leclerc even pouncing behind us, who was nowhere to be seen in that first stint of the race. But he's going to try for a move on us into turn 13. But he's going to have to stick behind. And surely there's going to be no more chances for us to get an overtake done on Max Verstappen. But Verstappen's teammate Pierre Gasly has had one hell of a drive this afternoon. He comes through the final corner to win the Russian Grand Prix, his second race win of the season. And Lewis Hamilton is going to close that championship gap on his teammate and Sebastian Vettel. He comes home to claim 18 points in P2, and it looks as if Max Verstappen is going to be the man that takes P3. We come through the penultimate corner. We're just about going to finish ahead of Charles Leclerc. We go defensive through the final corner and go spinning over the line to take P4. So close to a podium. We haven't had too many of them this season, but what a race that was. And it is Pierre Gasly who's come out on top, as we've just seen. And a well-deserved victory for Red Bull, who have slipped to the 4th quickest team on the grid, yet they've taken 2 race victories in a row and 2 double podiums in a row as well. A good race from Lando Norris as well, in what has been quite a struggling McLaren over the course of this season, but he took P8 this afternoon. But it was all about that man, Pierre Gasly, the race winner, ahead of Hamilton and Verstappen. And considering that was a Russian Grand Prix, I think that was pretty exciting. It's quite a lot of points in the Grand Prix. It was bizarre, and I didn't really know what was going on in terms of tyre wear and why we were so far behind the top 2. But all in all, it was P4 for ourselves. We were 20 seconds off the race victory. I mean, how is he in the 4th quickest car? Pierre Gasly has taken victory by 10 seconds in the 4th quickest car on the grid. It really does baffle the mind. But anyway, we came home in P4 ahead of Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. But our teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, who was in P3 in that second stint of the race, has come home in P12 to score a total of 0 points. You've got to feel for him. Alexander Albon, he was the only DNF in this race. He came home, of course, in P20. Lance Stroll as well, a very poor race from him in the racing point car. And as we take a look now at the drivers' standings, Verstappen and Gasly have closed up to us even further. So it's going to be quite a big battle, I'd say, for P4 in the championship, because we're pretty close to Leclerc. Of course, we outscored him in that race. Verstappen outscored us, and Gasly outscored Verstappen. So it's going to be a pretty good end to the season by the looks of it. We've slipped further behind Red Bull in the constructors' standings, although I think our teammate can take the brunt of the blame for that. We're 60 points behind with 5 rounds left, I believe, in this season. But that is it for the Russian Grand Prix, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I very much did. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Comment your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you guys next time for the Japanese Grand Prix. Take care. Bye-bye.